Wakey, hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us here on Morning Prime. Another beautiful day that we get to meet here on Siasa Fiesta on the 23rd of January 2023. Well, threw me off a bit there, but we have a lot lined up for you. Of course, looking yesterday at that particular big meeting that we had at State House between Koome and President Ruto, that is the Chief Justice, and what it does really portend moving forward on the trust of Kenyans on the judiciary. We have the opposition, which was really against this particular meeting, saying this is a state capture. We shall be looking at that and a raft of other issues as well. Information from InfoTrack on how Kenyans are faring. They're barely scraping by. 73% of Kenyans are barely making it due to financial constraints, and we shall be looking at that as well. We're joined this morning by Otieno Amolo, who is the Member of Parliament of Rarieda, Senate Council. Dr. also is the captain of the Bunge team. We shall be joined by also Omatinga Wahome, who is the Senator of Nyeri. We'll be joined by Dan Manzo, who is the Senator of Makueni. And also we'll be joined this morning by Eden Canaan, who is a Member of Parliament for Eldas. So a lot that we have in the pipeline. You get to drive a show with us. You can hit us on X. At KTN News is our X handle also. At Dibalaner, you can follow me there as well to just see how also we can fire those questions to our panelists who will be here to answer them as well from those social media platforms. But for now, let's see how the weather will be today. Let's see what is fresh off the press this morning, beginning with the bold paper, The Standard. Justice on trial as Ruto Koome meets is what is on the front page of The Standard this morning. Turbulence is there. Lawyers and opposition leaders have said the meeting between the Chief Justice and the President will not augur well, as that is direct interference in the independence of one arm of government. The leaders say the dialogue will dent public confidence in the institution. And you have the story on page 4 and 5 of the Standard today. What executive promised judges also is listed here. Budget. The executive and the parliamentary leadership have pledged to increase budgetary allocation to the judiciary, a move they say will reduce corruption. Also on appointments, the bench is to get 25 High Court judges and 11 Court of Appeal judges. Also on transport, the executive has promised judiciary leadership that it will conclude the vehicle leasing program to facilitate transport needs. And you can see an insert here of the President and the Chief Justice there, President William Ruto and Chief Justice Martha Koome, after a meeting that brought together the leadership of the Judiciary, Legislature and the Executive at State House, Nairobi yesterday. We'll run you by that story also in our news bulletin this morning. On the sidebar, parents, teachers confused by CBC grade 6 marks. Tutors say the grading system should be changed as they are left wondering how learners performed. You have a story on page 6 and 7 of the Standard today. Senators talk on party rattles UDA. Senators talk on party rattles UDA. Nyeri senator says if the region joined the government through a party and not the president's vehicle, they would have better bargaining power and the benefits will be much more. You have a story on page 2, and this is Senator Wahome Botinga. We hope he'll show up actually to talk about this now that he's rattled the UDA party with his sentiments. And also, you can follow the story on page 2. Gurus on economy cooperate or sink. Policymakers and business leaders attending the World Economic Forum have pinned high hope on cooperation based on mutual trust and respect to drive global economic growth. This story continues on page 24 of the Standard today. Also on the teaser, police get crucial leads in Waini's brutal killing. That is the story that you want to follow on page 3 of the Standard this morning. And Financial Standard comes in handy for you. Get all the wiser as far as financial matters are concerned. Safety concerns in states' quest for overseas jobs. No letterbus. Shilling sinks again. It had reached that 160 mark, but it seems to be falling more and more. You can read the story on page 24 of the Standard today. Will Cameroon stand and be counted? Will Cameroon stand and be counted? That is a story that you want to follow on page 38, 39 and 40 of the Standard this morning. The Daily Nation, big job cuts loom for civil servants, is what is a splash on the front page of the Daily Nation today. State-backed bill proposes repeal of current cohesion law to entrench diversity. This is on reforms following damning audits exposing the extent of ethnic discrimination in public sector employment that has seen a few tribes dominate government jobs. A new bill seeks to further reduce the statutory quota for a dominant community in an agency. If enacted, it could lead to restructuring of state agencies and possible job losses. That story continues on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. What Ruto and Koome discussed in crisis talks during a 4.5-hour meeting at State House. The President and Chief Justice confronted corruption allegations that have soured relations between the executive and judiciary. Sources say a dossier on alleged graft in courts featured even as the parties agreed to a 30-day roadmap to tackle the vice. The story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. On the sidebar, Senators want fund for poor counties extended. Senate committee to rally Parliament to extend the sunset clause of the Equalization Fund by more than 10 years. And also tactics Kenyans are using to cope with hard economic times. There's a survey there. Polls shows a majority of Kenyans are in financial distress. They have resorted to side hustles and foregoing meals. You have the story on page 8 of the Daily Nation. 280,000 Form 1 students yet to join secondary school. Basic Education PS Bilio Kipsang says 80% of 1.4 million students have reported to schools, adding authorities will enforce compliance with 100% transition policy. This is on the back page of the Daily Nation today. You have also the Healthy Nation coming your way. How killers bought weapon online. How killers bought weapon online. Detectives caught one of the suspects in the murder of university student Rita Waini bought a hatchet from an online vendor, claiming it was for self-defense. But police believe the weapon was used during the murder of a 20-year-old woman whose decapitated head was found in an apartment at Kasarani, a Kiambu court. Actually, they're saying decapitated body here, but the head was not really found. Was found in an apartment at Kasarani. A Kiambu court has allowed police to detain for 8 days two Nigerians, William Opia and John Bull Asibor, arrested following the killing. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. All right, let's see what we have on the front page of the Star. Gachagua faces battle for survival in kingpin contests. Kindiki, Ndindi and Uhuru mine and Jenga access plotting against DP. That is the story you want to follow inside the Star this morning. Plan. The DP's influence and succession chances are being challenged. It's all about Mount Kenya politics. You can grab a copy for that. Azimio County bosses troop back to Raila. Several Azimio governors, initially sympathetic to President William Ruto's administration, have apparently returned to the fold as reality dawns on them ahead of 2027 election. The governors have dropped their "we are working with the government's pledge" and recoiled behind opposition chief Raila Odinga in hitting at the government. All right, dire to blame for exam failure. This is what studies is showing. All parents wish their children will excel in school, but nutrition experts say the journey to grade A or D in KCSE exams is shaped by what you feed an infant. An assessment by the Ministry of Health and its partners shows that, barring other factors, most Kenyan children are already primed for miserable grades. You have a story on page 2. Kenya's solo trade deal ikes EAC members. Kenya's pursuit of solo trade deals with key global markets has continued to annoy other East African community members or member states amid fresh fallouts with Uganda and Tanzania. You can follow the story on page 11 of the Star this morning. We can also look at the People Daily. Kome meets Ruto with begging bow. That is what we have on the front page of the People Daily. After weeks of brow, President pledges cash for hiring 36 judges and leasing of cars for judiciary staff following talks with Chief Justice Kome. You have a story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And 73% of Kenyans are broke. This is what we have as revelation here. Due to financial distress, this is from InfoTrack. It says, due to financial distress, at least 32% say they had strain on personal relationships, while 18% others indicated they suffered mental health effects. The story continues inside the People Daily this morning. Also, oops, it jumped to the next page. Let me just go back to what we had on the front page there so that we can continue together. On the side, but there, stop harassing the teachers. This is what Teacher Service Commission is saying. Employer warns against continued attacks on school heads by parents and learners, blaming them for exam failure. That story continues on page 6 of the page 2 of the People Daily. On page 6, Raila, Azimio is as strong as a fiddle. Fit as a fiddle should be. That is what we have on the front page of the People Daily this morning. Let's look at Taifa Leo. Utafiti, hali si hali Kenya. That is what Taifa Leo is saying. Asilimia 73 ya Wakenya wasema maisha yamewafinya sana hadi wamekata tamaa. Right? They're losing hope. And this is what is on the front page of Taifa Leo this morning. Mahangaiko, karibu robo tatu ya Wakenya wanakiri kulemewa na ugumu wa maisha, hasa gharama ya chakula, karo ya shule na kodi ya nyumba, kwa mujibu wa InfoTrack. You can follow the story on page 2. Junet apata watetezi. Viongozi mbalimbali hasa wa ODM wakiongozwa na Hassan Joho wapinga mpango wowote wa kumwadhibu mbunge wa Suna Mashariki. That is a story you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo. And dwele ya jasho lenye harufu mbaya. You can read all about it on page 13 and 17 of Taifa Leo. Algeria, Misri na Cameroon roho mkononi. Senegal waliofuzu ni kati ya majabali wanaofunga kazi ya makundi katika AFCON leo. You can follow the story on page 20 of Taifa Leo. Let's back down to some business. Ruto targets 133 billion shillings annually from new health insurance plan. Ruto targets 133 billion shillings annually from new health insurance plan. 77 billion shillings expected from salaried workers. Rollout after February the 9th public views deadline. And you can see also tabulation there of the gross pay and what you will be paying for the SHIF or SHIF. If your earnings are following between 20 to 30,000, 50,000, this is what you're going to be actually deducted. 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 1 million as well is all given there. This is according to the government of Kenya. The sources there. Treasury miles new farm for hustler business loan guarantees. That is another story you want to follow. The Treasury has revealed plans to set up a company in partnership with the financial institutions to de-risk lending to small businesses, including those who graduate from the Hustle Fund by commercial banks. Also, consumers' woes as KPC fuel loses hit new high, and Resolution Insurance enters liquidation as rescue bid fails. Diaspora remittances grow to record 671 billion shillings in a year. Money sent home by Kenyans living abroad continued on a growth trajectory to hit a record 671 billion shillings, that is $4.1 billion in 2023, significantly boosting the country's current accounts balance amid falling exports revenue. You can follow the story inside the Business Daily as well. We cross over to Uganda, where Molly Katanga's DNA was found on pistol trigger. That is the story you want to follow inside the Daily Monitor. Investigation ongoing there. Director of Public Prosecutions in a report to the Nakawa Chief Magistrates Court says results from samples presented to ballistic experts show that Molly Katanga's DNA was predominant on the killer's pistol. You can read on and follow the story inside the Daily Monitor. Museveni to push for prosperity for all as G77 plus China chairman. You can follow the story on the Daily Monitor. Right, that should be the G7. Well, you can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor. The Citizen, how rest of East Africa can catch up in startup funding. How rest of East Africa can catch up in startup funding, with Kenya having attracted an eye-popping $800 million in startup investment in 2023 alone. Experts have outlined reasons behind this runaway success and offered advice on how other East African nations can follow suit. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Citizen. CDF wary of security threat posed by refugees. That is what we have there. Today, Salim Arafat met over Israeli-Palestinian conflict. All that is tucked away inside the Citizen if you're waking up in Tanzania. In Rwanda, 7 initiatives placing Rwanda as major player in artificial intelligence field. Government predicted an ecosystem worth $589 million AI potential in the next 5 years. This is on page 3 of the New Times. Mozambican army chief visits Rwanda, and you have a story inside the New Times as well. The East African this week, friends again? An abiding question there, despite apparent thawing of relations between Kenya and Uganda. There are sticking points in the fuel import talks. Kampala wants a license for UNOC, but Nairobi says the Ugandan marketer should embrace competition from Kenyan companies and their cases in the courts. You can follow the story on page 5 of the East African this week. Well, we'll leave it at that. We shall also be just running you by some of other publications as well this morning. Time to hear the voices of our guests who are already here in studio, eagerly waiting to be joined by our home Wamatinga, nearest senator, and also Dan Manzo. We have with us Dr. Otena Molo with us, and also Eden Kanan. And we just want to give him a hearty welcome and also hear their voices and to give us introductory remarks as well. Good morning, Jabura.
Good morning.
Good to see you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes, events happening today. I mean, yesterday in the morning, everyone was eagerly waiting if that will be happening, and finally it did. Even after there were rallying calls that there shouldn't be any meeting between the president and the chief justice or the judiciary, or the executive and the judiciary. But finally, it seems they have a happy medium. Of course, we shall be just running you by that particular story, and we'll continue to talk about it. But just as an introductory remarks, well, what is your reaction, briefly?
I had hoped that that the CJ and the DCJ were actually not going to honor that invitation for the meeting. I think it's a singularly unfortunate meeting for so many reasons. But now that it happened, I guess we will see moving forward what that means. I think that the meeting was not necessary. It was ill-timed, coming at a time the president had made some several remarks, including promising that he would not order certain court orders, which he did not withdraw, not even at the meeting. And also the seat of that meeting was also improper. I think it's essentially interfering with the functional independence of the judiciary. First, the CJ and DCJ cannot control individual judicial officers in terms of decision making. So to the extent that one could say that they may have been going to have a discussion on how the judiciary should go this way or the other way, it's a false premise. They cannot do that. And if that was the intention, then that is quite improper. Secondly, if it was a discussion, as the president was initially saying, about corruption, then there's nothing to discuss about corruption. Corruption is unlawful, it's criminal, and if there's any instance of corruption, you cannot sit to start discussing it. You are simply supposed to act on it. To discuss corruption, if indeed it were true that there's corruption in the judiciary, in itself would be very unfortunate. What's even more, if you were to discuss corruption, where is the ESCC? Where is the National Intelligence Service? Where are the primary organs that are constitutionally mandated to deal with corruption? It is not the Speaker of the National Assembly or the President who have a mandate to deal with corruption. And if you look at it keenly, you will even see that even people like the Deputy President, who took the cue from the President and was singing loudly about impropriety in the judiciary, he even threatened to file some complaint. Where was he? If indeed it was a contextual and proper discussion of the issues of the judiciary. So I think that it was a very unfortunate meeting, even the fact that it was held at State House, even the fact that the president did not apologize to the nation and to the judiciary, or indeed undertake that he will be respectful of court orders. I think it was an unfortunate meeting. Yes.
So even the venue itself, we've had also Right Honorable Raila Odinga castigating that particular meeting happening in State House. There should have been also a neutral ground.
Where the Constitution gives each arm of government very distinct functions. You cannot then purport to be advising an arm of government on how to execute its function. It's like if the CJ was now to start advising the president who to appoint as a cabinet secretary or how they are supposed to execute their function. If it was a strategic meeting, it should not have been in the judiciary, not in State House, not in Parliament. It would have to be at a more neutral, more neutral ground, and then it would not be closed doors. Because if what you are discussing is of importance to Kenyans, why would you be discussing under closed doors? And I've seen in the papers, they're even talking about the president promising to fund the judiciary better. The president does not fund the judiciary. The judiciary is funded from Parliament. So you would have been talking of the National Assembly, because primarily it's the National Assembly that allocates funds. you would not be going to discuss it with the president at State House.
Right, interesting the way the people daily have put it. Before I come to it, and Kenneth, Kome meets Ruto with a begging bow when it comes to that funding that Dr. Chene is talking about, which should be a preserve, of course, of a National Assembly. So it sounds like even when they went there, tokenism were being doled out. Oh, we'll of course make sure that also your vehicle, the leasing program is working. We'll appoint more judges. So primarily this was not issue about just corruption alone. But do you hold with what Otieno Molo is saying this morning?
To the contrary, let's start with a norm. We have a sovereign republic owned and managed by the people of Kenya democratically. To that extent, all of us bear allegiance to the existence of the Republic of Kenya. Two, there is that interdependence of state institutions. And I think if my friend Otieno Molo was honest with the application of actually his legal mind, you'll realize that there's no total independence like these institutions. These institutions rely on each other. That's why in statecraft, and I think this is the bit maybe has done a pure legal platform, in the statecraft, those institutions work together. You may not know. They share intelligence, they share resources, they share that because all of them work for the existence of the sovereign Republic of Kenya. Now that being the case, what is being politicized? First of all, that headline by people is sensational. They have to sell it. And you know the owners. They have to sell it anyway. I'll be surprised if the headline was different. But that being the case, we are all speculating. We are all speculating. We do not know what was discussed other than what is appearing here. And a statement that was released by the Office of the President. And that statement did not allude to how to manage judges. No, that will be unconstitutional. What that statement alluded to was a meeting by the three arms of government. But the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And each has its own leadership. And what was discussed, other than what we have seen in the media, must be something that will add value to the people of Kenya. If they use the issue of eradication or reduction of corruption in all institutions, in parliament, in the legislature, in the executive, and the judiciary, that's a welcome decision. That's why the CJ is the head of this national platform called the National Agency. It's called National Agency for. It's called
NCAJ.
Yeah,
National Council on Administration.
Or National Council on Administration.
Or Administrative Justice.
Administrative Justice. Why is it there? It's simply because their work is to collect, synthesize, act on all incidents of corruption actually, and report and give it back either through policy suggestions, through actionable programs. And I think even the framers of the Constitution had that idea, that convergence point actually in mind. But I think, secondly, there are people in this country who will always rubbish anything that does not originate from them. Anything that does not originate from them is not good. For how long shall we be subservient? For how long shall we be bonded to them for something that we know has not added value to the well-being of the people of Kenya? And let me say this. It was a good starting point. You see, budget is a consultative process. It's not owned by the president. It's not owned by parliament. It's not owned that's why there's public participation. That's why there's clear relation. What the executive does, what parliament does, and what the judiciary does. So that convergence point actually to discuss how to allow each of the three arms of government, how to get a portion, a fair share of the national bread, the national budget, is something that is welcome because their prioritization. When they sit, they say parliament requires. And I saw the other day, my friend here led a team of parliamentarians in order to fight for the rights of men, which is a commendable job. Equally, what is wrong in the speaker, the CJ, the president, being the heads of three arms of government, in meeting to decide we have these limited resources, where are the pressing areas? How do absolutely, there's no harm. That is why judicial officers, judicial officers appear before JLAC, and I'm sure he's a member of JLAC, and by extension, they also appear before the Budget and Appropriation Committee. So the structure is there. There's no difference. Parliament appropriates to the different arms. And finally, on this, Dibal, I've gone back to a bit of judicial history all over the world. It may be pronounced, it may not be pronounced. There's nowhere in the world where these arms don't meet. These arms of government actually don't meet. They meet whether it's publicly or through different platforms. And the State House is the center of our governance structure. There's nothing wrong, absolutely wrong. So like you remember when we started that discussion on that dialogue committee, we should not meet in parliament, we should meet in hotel. That culture, we must get rid of that culture. So the meeting happened in the State House. State House is a public facility owned by the people of Kenya. The center of power is the center of government. Absolutely, there's nothing wrong. And I am not sure, and I think let's be fair, I don't think whether the CJ and her deputy, two renowned legal minds, will go to the executive to discuss on how judges will deal with judicial issues. I doubt whether that happened. And I don't think whether the president will accept. Because judges enjoy an absolute independence on how they make their own decisions based on the evidential value of what is presented before them. So I think to assume and speculate that might have been discussed and they'll be given direction, I think it's a fallacy. It's not true. I don't think whether the president will accept. I don't think whether the CJ and her deputy will even think of it. I don't think whether the Honorable Wetangula, being a seasoned lawyer, will even be party to something that will order the judicial independence of judicial officers. So we are speculating. Can we see how that will work out? And I remember Justice Maraga asked for an appointment with the former president. You know it. He went public. He called for a press conference and said he wants to meet the former president, President Uhuru then. Why did the handshake partners then not say Maraga was going wrong? They didn't say it because they were party to that arrangement. In fact, they were against, they never wanted Uhuru. They were saying Uhuru, don't bend, don't. Yeah, we understand this. We have also been around. They were telling Uhuru, no, the guy is frustrated. Don't give him an edge. Don't give. Why have they not condemned at that particular time? Where were they between 2018 and 2022? Why is it an issue right now? Why was it not an issue at that particular time? Give the president the space. Let him function. If he fails, come out, compete 2027. If you are courageous enough, appeal to the people of Kenya, get the votes. But for now, politicizing every step of the government, I think it's not fair. Even people of Kenya actually will get tired with that, sort of everyday political crisis. And I'm glad that the president has made a decision to move on regardless of what his political detractors are saying. Because at the end of the day, I know ultimately, after 1 or 2 years, let me say after 1 year, we will see signs of great improvement in what is being done right now.
All right, let's see what transpired where Chief Justice Martha Koome held a meeting with President William Ruto at State House, as we're just discussing here, over corruption allegations raised against some judges by the head of state. Now, in a statement shared to Newsroom after hours of a meeting, the three arms of government promised to formulate strategies to deal with corruption in government within 30 days. This, as Azimio leader Raila Odinga castigated the meeting, saying the judiciary is being held hostage by the executive. As KTN's Mahuto now reports, the government also promised to increase budgetary allocations to the judiciary to employ 36 more judges.
So we'll be looking out for that dialogue. We have written, and I believe His Excellency is going to give us an appointment, and we are ready to go anytime we are called.
After days of heated debate on whether or not it was right for Chief Justice Martha Koome to have dialogue with President William Ruto over the allegations of corruption raised by President Ruto against some judges, finally the CJ and the President had a meeting Monday that sought to, among other things, put an end to the sustained attack on the judiciary by President Ruto. In a statement sent to newsrooms by the State House Monday, the executive, legislature and judiciary agreed to individually develop policies, guidelines, regulations and legislative proposals to achieve the objective of fighting corruption, improving service delivery and enhancing institutional accountability of all arms of government. The statement further adds that, quote, within 30 days, each arm of government will submit the proposals made to a forum of the National Council of the Administration of Justice, NCAJ, convened by Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice. The forum will provide a roadmap for the immediate, medium-term and long-term measures to be undertaken. The executive and the legislature also promised to support the judiciary's request for additional budgetary support to achieve, among other things, the recruitment of an additional 25 judges of the High Court and the recruitment of 11 new judges of the Court of Appeal. Resources will also be provided to conclude the vehicle leasing program to facilitate the judiciary's transport needs. The president had for over 2 weeks engaged in an all-out war against the judiciary, accusing some of the judges of corruption after they slammed brakes on some of his projects, such as the housing levy and the Social Health Insurance Act.
Nani ajui hapa kuna ufisadi inaendelea mahakamani? Sijui kama tunaelewana.
These threats and declarations are extremely serious and a monumental assault to the Constitution. It is also an assault to the rule of law.
Some members of the Judicial Service Commission, including Attorney General Justin Muturi, Deputy CJ Philomena Mwilu, Speaker of the National Assembly Moses Wetangula, the CS for Internal Security Professor Kithure Kindiki, and the Chairperson of the Council of Governors Anne Waiguru were among the leaders who attended the meeting held in State House, Nairobi. Already the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has called out the President and the CJ for convening the meeting that he terms illegal.
If there's going to be a dialogue over issues of governance, they should be held in a neutral ground. But this means that the judiciary itself is being compromised by the executive. The judiciary is being held hostage by the executive.
Emmanuel To, KTN News, Nairobi.
All right, that's what we're discussing this morning moving forward. I want just to rope in Dan Manzo was joining us as well. People are saying this is a proven threat of, the constitutional order as far as the separation of powers is concerned. I want to just also get your reaction.
You see, the initial complaints or what the president was talking about is very different from what they ended up talking about. And when you look at the three arms of government, you look at the heads, and you see the Attorney General was roped in, meaning he's on the part of the executive. You have the Chief Justice and the Deputy. Then you have somebody coming from the COG representing the governance. And when you look at that and what eventually was discussed, there are usual things which are handled naturally. If it is an issue of budget, the CJ and the team appear before the National Assembly. If it's an issue of misappropriation by the judiciary, then they appear before the Justice Committee. So there are already structures which exist. The original issue was corruption in judiciary, having been accused by the executive. I remember the Deputy President was supposed to organize a demonstration before the Chief Justice, which he called on the last meeting because there is a dialogue. He was not part of the dialogue. So Kenyans have just been treated into a charade of some sort. These are not the issues. This is just a meeting which has been held purported to deal with the serious issues in administration of justice, which is not the case. So there is really nothing which has been achieved. This is just a showbiz. Just for photographs, but the real issues have not been touched. There is serious corruption, as alleged by the president in judiciary. There is serious corruption in government, which is supposed to be checked by judiciary. And there has been issues also in the National Assembly or Parliament generally. So I don't think this really is representative of the issues. This is just a showbiz of some sort, and it has not solved anything. If there is a corruption in judiciary, we should see official complaints to Judicial Service Commission, documented, then proceedings to pursue and the results given. If there is a corruption in executive, people should be prosecuted. We have not seen the DPP in this matter, and is a crucial, organ, which is also independent of the Constitution. So there is so much missing, This is just the normal, cover-up, the normal showbiz of the government, but not dealing with the issues, really dealing with the Kenyans.
Mm-hmm. Right. Dr. Tena Molo, the last time I checked, looking at just the previous copy of the standard there, that we have it, if my director may just speak it, facelift for 117-year-old State House. I thought this was closed for renovation. And the president, as they put it here, is supposed to be a nomad president. For the next 2 months, President William Ruto will be shuttling between various state houses and state lodges as a century-old state house in Nairobi undergoes extensive renovations, it says. And this was bound to cost 795 million shillings by June. That is just by the sidelines. I thought it was under renovation. So was there any urgency because of this meeting? It had to be actually in State House.
Well, if you asked me, I don't even know if our president actually needs State House because I think he visits more, official government buildings in other countries more than in our own. Maybe we should even lease State House for some time. We might even raise some money. But let's just put this matter to rest. And, Honorable Kenan said three things, all of which actually emphasize the point we're making. First, he says we are being speculative, that he doesn't think that they could have discussed some of the things we are saying. That is the first point, and that's the point I was making. Where you are having a proper meeting of heads of arms of government, it's not supposed to be under closed doors. It's supposed to be clear and open to anyone who wants to listen so that we know exactly what is discussed. The fact that it was held in camera is the first thing that is wrong with that whole arrangement, because then you are left to speculate, and that's what we should avoid. So he's actually agreeing with me. Secondly, the summary of what you've just shown, the communication that came, makes this meeting totally inappropriate. It comes out that actually the judiciary went on a begging mission and that they were promised things by way of bribing the judiciary, therefore, to be compliant. When you have communication now saying they have been promised you will increase the number of judges, you will, increase the allocation to judiciary, you will renovate and enable them have other cars, that is bribery. You do not need to have a situation where the executive appears to be bribing the judiciary in order to be compliant. That's exactly why we are against that kind of situation. Thirdly, there's this word that people like
what if these questions were proffered to them, Mr. President? Would you kindly?
But that's the point.
Yes.
The president has no role. All those things that you have been listed, all those are things that are to be done by Parliament. Increasing the number of judges requires amendment to the law. And I am in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. We recently changed the law to increase the number of judges of appeal and even of the High Court. You don't need to go to the President for that. You come to Parliament, and we've already done it. Increasing allocation to the judiciary is done by Parliament. It's not done by the executive. And once you've given the judiciary its funds, you don't determine for them what to do with it. In fact, the Constitution establishes an independent judiciary fund. So whatever they want to do, the idea is to allocate sufficient funds to the judiciary. Now, whether they want to use it to hire vehicles or to buy vehicles, that's the executive has nothing to do with that. So all those things that are listed are things that the executive does not deal with. Now, this word that Honorable Kenan and others like using, interdependent, there's even no such word in this whole constitution. Each arm of government is given a distinct role. And oversight for each arm is also very clear. The judiciary is actually oversighted by us in Parliament in terms of the allocation that we give, in terms of who is appointed CJ, which must come to Parliament. And then the judiciary, the judicial officials are oversighted by an independent commission, the Judicial Service Commission, in terms of conduct. So the executive does not oversight the judiciary. In fact, it is the judiciary that oversights the executive. So where you are supposed to be oversighted, and yet the very person who's supposed to police you is the one you are summoning to police, it's a very wrong arrangement. Lastly, NCAJ, even that statement saying now it has been agreed that the National Council on Administration of Justice will take up those issues and deal with the corruption. The NCAJ does not deal with corruption. The mandate of NCAJ is to check the smooth flow of administration of justice across the board, and therefore that's why its membership has all the justice players from the prisons, probation officer, DPP, Attorney General, everyone else, and is chaired by the Chief Justice. You don't need to go to State House to pronounce to NCAJ what it should do, and yet by law the functions are clear. And corruption, fighting corruption is not one of them. The function of the NCAJ is to ensure that there's smooth flow in the administration of justice. Article 2 of our Constitution is very clear. No one, not even the president, should exercise any power unless and except that which is expressly donated by this Constitution. The function of the president does not include superintending or policing the judiciary. And that's why this whole arrangement is inappropriate.
Right, so everyone is questioning the mettle of Justice Koome on this, that she is spineless, she's not able to take the heat, and she's really buckled under now the heat from the executive to actually be in this particular meeting. They're saying, oh, be strong like Justice Maraga, be strong like William Mutunga. Do you hold with those views?
First of all, a number of things have been said. We need to understand the governance structure of how things are done in Kenya. I don't think whether the president and Justice Koome and her deputy discussed on how to increase the number of judges in the Court of Appeal.
But we just done a story.
No. What happened? Let me just tell you what. Let me educate you.
Even you are purely speculative on this as well.
Let me educate you on how it is done. And my friend here is a seasoned lawyer. There is a cap. There was a ceiling on the number of judges. That's in the Court of Appeal and in the High Court. If there has to be a change, that change comes to Parliament. Parliament legislates. The president assents or whatever. And in this case, I'm told that has been assented a long time ago. The next thing is availing budgetary provisions. That is completely different from creating the structure. That structure, the need must have come from the Judicial Service Commission. In their own wisdom, they must have informed Parliament that they need to amend the Judicial Act. They need to amend this in order to take account the need for more judges in the Court of Appeal and the High Court. Once that is done and there's a legal platform, the next thing is how to actualize. How to actualize now is there must be budget. And that's what the law actually requires. That is completely different from what is being speculated, and I don't think whether it's within the purview of the president to say, add this number of High Court judges, add this number of Court of Appeal judges. No, that is speculation, and you know my friend is misleading. The other is the fact that the two arms of the three tiers, you know, we have a devolved unit. We had the representative of the county government, we had the national government, we had Parliament, and we had the judiciary, made that a consultative process. And Dibala, I want to ask you, have you found anywhere in the world where all government issues are discussed in Brazos, where you call for a meeting and say, tomorrow, even in your own editorial policy, do you call everybody here to discuss the editorial policy? There must be particular people who are appointed, particular people who are tasked, they discuss and disseminate the same. So the arena, what my friend here is alluding to, only existed the pre-Greek democratic platform that used to take days. You remember where democracy started? In Greece, where you will call representative, where you will call everybody from the islands, you discuss, you stay there for 1 year without making any decision. They got representative democracy, eventually they also got this elective process. That's why now decisions are made by representative of the people. So I think that allusion that that's what the president did is totally wrong, and it's not true. And I don't think whether that's any of the issues that the CJ will have accepted or the president will accept it. The issues that will come first are issues of general issues that will add value to the well-being of the people of Kenya. Our justice system, corruption is a concern to everybody in all arms, not only in the judiciary, in Parliament, in the legislature, in the county government, in the executive. It's something that we have to fight, and it's all over. The other bit is these people need to meet, and it's all over. Find out. I want my friend to be fair here. Arms leadership of different arms of government in all civilized nations meet, whether it's through an open platform or whether conveniently in other means, they all meet. The other bit is the issue of State House. State House is a facility owned by the people of Kenya, and I'm glad that over the last 1 week, you have alluded to the issue of its renovation. We were told it was dilapidated. We were told it was almost collapsing. And therefore, that building is of 100-something years old. I remember one time the late Kaiseri used to say, some 150 years ago, that used to be the kraal of his, the wives of his grandfather. That's the reality. But the circumstances have changed. So renovating, wait for it. Where the meeting took place, State House is a big facility. So it's not that every bit of State House is under renovation. They can't miss a room where the meeting was held. I think we should rest that issue there until we see when the budget comes. Listen to this. when the expenditure is presented to Parliament, you know who is the head of Public Accounts Committee? The chairman of ODM. They will have an opportunity to interrogate, deal with it, and if there was unfair spending, they will bring it to Parliament. For now, what we are dealing with is speculation. This other bit of the interdependence of government institutions. Where do we live? Even here, as now one of the key broadcasters here, there are so many things that you do in consultation with your CEO, with your counterparts, with this. That is the nature of organizational management. So this issue of saying anything that we have not sanctioned, for how long shall it be subservient to the whims of few individuals? From 1963 to date, every 5 years, you must do this. Because if they had the platform to do it, they would have done it the way they think. My take is, when our democracy allows, give us an alternative, debatable platform that will add value to the well-being of the people of Kenya. This issue of standing in every brother, loudly criticizing the president and his government that they are doing this unfairly. Where were you between 2018 and 2022? Where were you between 1992? And you understand the manifestation of what I'm talking about. Between 1992 at the advent of multipartyism to 1997, you know the dynamics. 1997 to 2002, you know the dynamics. This noise has been there. It didn't stop Boy. It didn't stop Kibaki. It didn't stop Uhuru. It will not now stop William Ruto. And it will continue to be there. My advice to my friends and that group, that is not the way a state is run. I think they need to go back to the basics. A state is run by providing issues led by the alternative government. The alternative government is supposed to be the opposition. Right now we just see noise from public brothers. Give us the alternative. Put it in writing. Let's digest. Let Kenyans get an opportunity to compare. That is the way to go about it.
Well, we do for a station break momentarily. But the question I want to ask now that we've seen this, the heat and intensity of the barrel of the president being targeted towards the judiciary. We have a very interesting editorial cartoon there on the war on graft. How do we reinvent this wheel? Previously, we had cabinet secretaries also who somehow they've been caught up in this dragnet of corruption. The president also had actually given a statement to the ESCC to try and interrogate some of the CSs who were involved, especially on the edible oil graft or corruption therein. First of all this energy on fighting corruption, can it be done elsewhere? Are we reinventing the wheel? But the ultimate question I wanted to ask before we take a short break, Otena Molo, is the fact that now that we started the war on corruption, what do we expect from this particular meeting? Are we expecting to see any heads rolling?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
And if the president was serious about fighting corruption, he does not need to start by attacking the judiciary. He just needs to start by cleaning his house. There's immense corruption within the executive, and the president knows it, because I have insiders who even, confess as between the cabinet secretaries, some of the principal secretaries, people who have suddenly come into immense riches. And the president does not need anyone's authority, because while appointing them has to pass through parliament, in dismissing anyone, he does not need parliament's approval. So if the president was serious about fighting corruption, he would start by cleaning house within the executive. Then we would know he's serious. But this is not about fighting corruption. This is about controlling the judiciary. Now, Honorable Kenan is so interesting. He likes the word speculative. So the statement issued by those who attended the meeting, he is calling that speculative.
No, I didn't.
And instead, he is imposing what he thinks that they could have discussed. And yet, they themselves have stated what they discussed.
They have discussed, they have discussed appointment of judges.
Hold on.
Have they discussed increase?
Honorable Kenan, I think Honorable Kenan is becoming blind. You will play that list again so that we can remind him. Secondly, Honorable Kenan, hold on. When we are told that the budget of renovation of State House, I think it was stated at about 800 million. He calls that speculative also. He says we should wait until it is brought to the Public Accounts Committee. Budgets are never brought to the Public Accounts Committee. It is expenditure after it is done that is brought. Budgets are, included in the proposal which comes to the House, which rubber stamps everything that, is going to State House. At a time that Kenyans cannot even afford a meal, spending 800 million in renovation is not a priority. State House was not in danger of collapsing.
Yeah.
But you see, if you look at it, you'll see the last budget, there are even budgets for, the office of the First Lady, I don't know doing what, the office of the Prime Minister's spouse, I don't know doing what. All those are the kind of budget, and they run into hundreds of millions when people are going hungry. Prioritization is a big problem.
Thank you.
Here.
Right. Prioritization is a big problem in the current administration. We want to take a short break. When we circle back, of course, we'll question why all these melodramatic issues with the judiciary. I mean, a simple meeting will have done it if that was the case at the end of the day, instead of the broadside declarations that we've had and calling on the judiciary that most of their members are corrupt at the end of the day. Why the cacophony? Why the kerfuffle, as they will put it? Why all this drama? We take a short break.